They made my kids sit at the end of the table, while my sister's kids were being served like royalty. My mom smiled and said, "Sweetheart, let the little ones eat first. Yours can wait for leftovers." My hands froze on the plate. My son's eyes filled with confusion. That moment, something inside me broke. Before the story continues, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you believe no child deserves to be treated like they're less. This one's for every parent who's been quietly humiliated. I forced a smile, trying to ignore the sharp sting in my chest as I watched my niece and nephew giggle with full plates of pasta and garlic bread, while my kids sat with empty ones. My sister, Hannah, leaned back in her chair, smirking. "Alyssa, you really should teach your kids patience," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. My mom chuckled, nodding along like it was some moral lesson. I bit my tongue, even though every muscle in my face wanted to scream. My husband, Mark, squeezed my hand under the table, whispering, "Let it go." But how could I? This wasn't the first time. Every family dinner turned into the same thing. My sister's perfect family first, mine second, like we were the leftovers too. Then my dad joined in. "Alyssa, if you had done better in life, maybe you could afford to host dinner once in a while." "We're already doing enough." His words sliced through me. Everyone laughed, pretending it was a joke, but my heart burned with quiet rage. I looked at my kids again, my little girl clutching her fork, pretending not to notice, and my son forcing a smile. That was the moment I decided. I wasn't going to take it anymore. They thought I was the failure of the family, the one who never achieved anything. They had no idea what I'd been building behind the scenes, and soon they'd find out. I didn't sleep that night. I kept hearing my dad's words, "If you had done better in life." They had no idea how much I'd done. I'd just never shown it, because every time I tried to talk about my work, they mocked it. "Online business? You mean wasting time on your laptop?" My sister once laughed so hard she cried. But for the past 3 years, while they were busy showing off their fake perfect lives, I'd been building something real. Something powerful. I got up at 3 a.m., sat at my desk, and stared at my laptop. On the screen was the empire they didn't know about, my clothing brand. I had started it quietly after losing my job, designing pieces during the nights my kids were asleep. The same mom they called lazy now owned a business that sold in all 50 states. But I'd never told them. Not yet. The next morning, my phone buzzed, an invitation. My parents were hosting a big family dinner to celebrate Hannah's new boutique. My stomach twisted. She was launching her business using my dad's money. The same dad who said he couldn't even help me buy groceries once. I almost declined. But then something in me said no. This was my moment. Not for revenge, for truth. That night, I walked into the house with my kids dressed neatly, heads held high. The smell of expensive perfume, wine, and pretension filled the air. Hannah stood near the cake, giving fake smiles, showing off her logo printed on napkins. "Oh, look, Alyssa came," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. My parents smiled politely but barely looked at me. When dinner started, the same old routine began. My kids' plates were passed last. My mom said softly, "Just wait, sweetheart. There's enough for everyone." And that was it. The switch flipped. My hands didn't shake this time. I calmly placed my napkin down, stood up, and said, "Actually, Mom, I brought something for everyone tonight." The room went silent. Hannah raised an eyebrow. My dad frowned. I pulled out my phone and turned the screen toward them. The live sales counter of my brand. Thousands of orders. Numbers climbing in real time. Their smiles faded instantly, and then I said, with a calm voice they'd never heard from me before, "While you were feeding my kids leftovers, I was feeding hundreds of families across the country." Their forks froze midair. My sister's jaw literally dropped. But that was just the beginning. Hannah's hand trembled as she reached for her wine glass. "This must be fake," she muttered, forcing a shaky laugh. My mom squinted at the screen, pretending not to believe what she was seeing, but my dad leaned forward, his voice tight. "What is this, Alyssa?" I smiled faintly. "It's my company. The one I built after you all said I'd never make it. The air grew heavy. Even the kids stopped eating. My sister tried to laugh it off. So what, you sell a few shirts online? That's cute. I took a deep breath and tapped the next tab on my phone. The projector in the room flickered to life. I had quietly connected it before dinner. On the wall appeared an image of my warehouse. Rows of workers, machines, and shipments. That's last month's production. We just crossed 4 million in annual sales, I said softly. The silence that followed was deafening. My mom's fork slipped from her hand, clinking against the plate. My dad leaned back, his face pale. 4 million? He whispered. Hannah tried to scoff, but her lips were trembling. I walked over to my kids, knelt down, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "You see, sweethearts? When people treat you like you're less, just remember, it's only because they can't handle how much more you'll become." My son smiled for the first time that night. My daughter reached for her food, not caring anymore who ate first. I turned back to the table. "So, Mom, Dad," I said calmly, "tonight my kids won't wait for leftovers. Because they're the reason I worked for everything you said I couldn't have." And before anyone could respond, my phone buzzed again, an email notification from a major retailer. The subject line said, "Partnership approved." Everyone saw it. Hannah's eyes widened in disbelief. My dad swallowed hard. I smiled and said, "Looks like dinner's on me next time." But they didn't know. The real shock was still coming. Something that would change how they looked at me. Forever. As the room stayed silent, I could feel their eyes drilling into me. My dad tried to compose himself. "Partnership? With who?" he asked, voice cracking slightly. I didn't answer right away. I just smiled and walked over to the TV, casting my phone screen. On it appeared a promotional video, my company's brand featured in a national campaign, partnered with Target. The sound of the logo echoing through the speakers made everyone freeze. My mom's jaw dropped. Hannah's fork fell to the floor. "No, that's impossible," she whispered. I turned toward her, calm and steady. "You remember when you laughed at me for selling clothes from my garage? Well, that garage just became a distribution hub for one of the biggest retail chains in America." My dad rubbed his forehead, unable to meet my eyes. My mom looked like she wanted to speak, but couldn't. Hannah finally exploded. "You think this makes you better than us? You think money changes everything?" I stepped closer, my voice low but sharp. "No, Hannah. What changes everything is respect. Something you all never gave me, until you saw dollar signs." The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. My mom muttered, "We didn't mean to," but I cut her off gently. "You did. Every dinner, every insult, every time my kids were told to wait. You meant it." I picked up my purse, looked at my children, and smiled. "Come on, babies. We're leaving. We've got people waiting to celebrate real success." As I turned to leave, Hannah's husband suddenly spoke up for the first time. "Alyssa, wait. You might want to see this." He held up his phone, a social media post that had gone viral. It was from my brand's official page, showing my story. The caption read, "They fed my kids leftovers. Now we feed the nation." The post already had millions of views. My dad's face went pale. "You posted that?" I smiled faintly. "No, my team did. The world deserves to know what silence can build." And as I walked out that door with my kids' hands in mine, my phone buzzed again. This time, from Hannah's investor, the one funding her boutique. The message read, "Alyssa, we've seen your story. We'd like to talk business. Now, the people who once laughed at me were about to depend on me." I stood in the driveway, the night air sharp against my skin, my kids laughing in the back seat, free, light, happy. For the first time in years, I felt peace instead of pain. Inside that house, my parents and sister were still frozen in disbelief. Outside, I was finally free from the weight of their approval. 2 days later, my phone exploded with messages. News channels were covering my story. "Single mom builds fashion empire from her garage. Family regret going viral." My DMs were full of people saying, "You gave me hope." Some even shared their own stories of being treated like leftovers. Then came the call that completed the circle. My dad. His voice trembled, something I hadn't heard since I was a kid. Alyssa, your mom isn't eating. She feels terrible about how we treated you. I stayed quiet. For a moment, I almost felt bad. Then I remembered every night my kids went to bed hungry while they dined like kings. I forgive you, I said slowly, but I won't forget. Forgiveness doesn't mean going back. It means moving forward without hate. There was silence on the other end. Then my mom spoke softly. Can we come see you? I smiled faintly. Maybe one day. But not as parents trying to control me, as people learning from me. A week later, I stood on a stage at a women's business conference. Cameras flashed. My story was now a symbol of strength, a reminder that silence isn't weakness, it's preparation. Never let anyone feed you leftovers, I told the audience. Because one day you'll own the kitchen. And somewhere far away I knew my family was watching. This time not with pride, but with realization. That night, as my daughter hugged me tight and whispered, "Mom, I'm proud of you," I finally understood. Revenge wasn't in the success. It was in the peace that followed it. Never underestimate the quiet ones. They're the ones building empires while the world laughs.